Good evening, dear friends. Hope you're all doing well. Let us continue with our next installment of the Daily Mitzvah. Three more mitzvahs, continuing the laws of kosher. What is kosher? So we begin with our first mitzvah. The first mitzvah for today, which is wrapping up the prohibition about insects. There's only one very specific kind of grasshopper, which is... My apologies. It's late at night here. Okay. Which is a form of insect that Jews are allowed to eat. But other than that, as we learned yesterday, there are many specific mitzvahs that you're not allowed to eat. A flying insect, a crawling insect, etc., etc. All different types of insects. Today we have the final mitzvah that it is forbidden to eat any type of insect, no matter what type of kind it is. And this mitzvah, which is, in fact, if you want to know the number, mitzvah 179, is that not anything specific. This is the general prohibition against eating insects in general, which means very interesting. The Torah gives us two levels of prohibitions. The Torah first tells us don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this kind of insect, that type of insect, etc. It gives us 5 different types of insects. Each mitzvah is a very specific criteria. And here the Torah tells us no, and here's the general prohibition, don't eat any insects. As the Torah says, do not make disgusting your souls with any creepy crawling insects or any insects. And you shall not defile yourselves with them, and they will defile you. When you eat insects, it damages the soul. Which means that Rambam says that whenever a Jew would eat an insect, they are actually in violation of at least two prohibitions. Number one, the general prohibition, as we just learned, against eating insects, and then the specific prohibition: don't eat a flying insect. Don't eat it. But then the Rambam says something very interesting. You could actually have an insect that shares multiple qualities, which check the box of multiple mitzvahs, and one insect could be in violation of 5 different mitzvahs. For example, let's say it's a fly, or it's an insect that emerges from decayed food, but it also flies and it also swims and it also crawls on the floor, and it also this. So all of a sudden you have 5 different prohibitions. Now the Rambam gives us a general point. The Rambam says, don't be surprised when we say that there could be an animal, or that there could be an insect, a fly, or whatever, that emerges from decayed stuff or from moldy food. Don't be surprised. The Rambam says this is indeed the truth. And even though many people have a hard time believing this, the Rambam says that's because they don't have a good grasp on science, and they see that in general, most things in the world appear through a male and a female mating, and therefore they have a hard time believing that of this phenomenon, that there could be an insect that emerges from decayed food. But the Rambam says, yes, this is a fact, and science has proven it, which is very interesting because it's still a controversial take today. What does the Rambam say that there's insects that totally emerge, and there's no male or female that have laid an egg or anything which will give birth to this insect? But that's what the Rambam is saying. The Rambam also says, don't be surprised, there could be a form of life that emerges from decayed food, which shares the properties of an insect and also shares properties of a bird. And it would be considered like a bird according to the Torah because it shares the qualities or the properties of both. So quite fascinating. That is this mitzvah. The second mitzvah for today is forbidden to eat a dead animal which has not been slaughtered properly, like a carcass that has died naturally. So it could be a kosher animal. It could be a cow. Wait. Sorry. Which is kosher. But if it wasn't slaughtered properly and it died on its own, you're not allowed to eat it. As the Torah says, like Seichel Kol Nevela, you shall not eat any carcass. And the final mitzvah for today is that once there was a cow that was sentenced to death. Yeah? It's very interesting. According to Jewish law, for example, if there's a cow, a bull, that kills a human being, then that bull is sentenced to death by the court. That's Jewish law. So the Rambam says, once there is a cow or an animal, which would have been kosher otherwise, but once it is sentenced to death, that animal becomes not kosher. And even if you slaughter it correctly, according to halacha, and you do everything properly, it doesn't help. It's not a kosher animal because it was sentenced to death. As the Torah says, you shall not eat its flesh. And dear friends, that is today's daily mitzvah. Zai gesund. We'll see you all soon for our next installment.